Leave me out the comments, leave me out the nonsense. Speaking out of context, people need some content. Dudes be trying to keep up. Shit is not a contest. The realest in the game back at it. Yes, sir. What's up, my dudes? Finally, we got the full review of Supercross 4, the official video game. So, I just want to get right to the point in this video. I'm going to try to make this video as short and sweet as humanly possible here, because I know these reviews can kind of get drug out a little bit, right? Because there's so much to talk about. There's just so much, so many different aspects to these games and stuff like that. But first of all, number one thing, let's just get this out of the way. This game is way better. I'm talking way better than MXGP 2020. Like, straight up. There was absolutely no reason at all for you to buy MXGP 2020. That game should have just been skipped completely. Like, there was literally just no reason to buy that game. So there is no doubt about it that Supercross 4 is a better game than MXGP 2020. Absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. Now, the interesting sort of comparison is when you start talking about, Supercross 4, if it's better than Supercross 3. That's where the whole comparison starts to get a little more interesting, and you start getting into some of these features and aspects that you start to realize might have actually been a little bit better back in Supercross 3 than they ended up being here in Supercross 4. But to some of you guys that have this idea that, Supercross 4 is exactly like Supercross 3, but it's just with a different name, like they didn't make very many changes to it or whatever, you're completely wrong by that. I'm just saying, like, this game is definitely a different game than Supercross 3. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt at all about that. Yeah, there's similarities to Supercross 4 and Supercross 3, but, like, they're not the same game. I mean, they're just not. Like, there's a completely different in-air physics system, in-air inertia. Gotta hit you boys with that inertia. The old Spency boy. Yeah, there's a whole, like, different in-air physics, inertia, gravitational pull, bouncing off the jump faces, leaning forward and backwards type system to this game that we have basically never ever had in any milestone game before ever, including Supercross 3. But what I will say is a couple things I wish they would have kind of kept with Supercross 3's physics system is it's kind of like I wish they would have kept a little more of the ground physics of Supercross 3, like a little bit more of the sliding effect, the wheel spin effect, maybe not quite as much as it was in Supercross 3, but kind of like if you mixed Supercross 3 and Supercross 4's sliding effect in the corners. I think that would have been perfect if you would have just mixed, both the games had a little baby, right? And, you kind of mixed both of the physics. You took the best of both worlds of both of the different physics systems of Supercross 3 and Supercross 4. I think that would have been a really cool aspect. And that kind of goes with everything to the comparison to both of these games. I wish they would have kind of, mixed Supercross 3 and 4. Hopefully, that's kind of the vibe we get with Supercross 5. I think that'll end up creating a really cool gameplay experience in that sense. But yeah, like I wish you could have kind of got like a mixture of the graphics between Supercross 3 and Supercross 4. I think that would have been really interesting. So kind of like that more, shading, shadows, lighting effect that you had in Supercross 3, but maybe not quite to the extent that it was in Supercross 3, kind of like if you just mixed it with Supercross 4, I think that would have looked really cool. So that's kind of the whole element to this review here. And with these milestone games, it's like they're starting to run into this predicament of they're going to have to get one of two things. Either A, they're going to have to start giving you more like smaller pre-made ruts in the corners and pre-made roughness and pre-made ruts going up the jump face and, pre-made ruts through the whoops and bigger whoops and stuff like that, or they're going to have to actually develop a proper terrain deformation system that can, actually start to wear down the track to a level and start to make ruts that you can actually dig into and feel on the track instead of just being visual blow right through them ruts like they're not even there, right? They're going to have to do one of those two things pretty damn soon, because this is not going to cut it continuing to have this completely bullshit terrain deformation system and then no pre-made. You just can't keep doing that. Like, they're going to have to do something with that. And another thing, I was really wishing that we was going to start to get like another kind of a weather effect. I think that would be a really cool new feature. You know how they have the rain mode? They've had the rain mode in these milestone games for like 2 or 3 years now. I want to see like a snow mode or a dry, a dry, dusty blue grooves type track mode that you can run on any track in the game. I would love to see, some other kind of weather condition mode, with Milestone being, the heaviest hitter weather effect type dirt bike game company out there. You'd really want to start seeing something like that. But yeah. It's like there's certain things that are better about Supercross 3, and then there's certain things that are better about Supercross 4. Like I was saying, I definitely prefer the air. There is way more air physics, inertia, skill gap to the jumping and all that kind of stuff with Supercross 4 than there was in Supercross 3. There's really no doubt about that. But the content of Supercross 3 blows Supercross 4 out of the water, especially when you consider the fact of you expect more content and you expect them to just give you more types of content the more games that you go through. That's one aspect that I was definitely disappointed with here in Supercross 4. So basically, like you guys remember on the free ride compound of Supercross 3, how it had 8 different outdoor training Supercross tracks, full-blown training Supercross tracks on it, right? That were really cool, different kind of vibe design. But here was Supercross 4. This game's free ride compound only has 4 of those little outdoor Supercross training tracks, and they're all like super basic beginner little, baby arena cross tracks that you're going to spend about 5 seconds on. So you definitely feel, and also with the fact of the matter with Supercross 4 having half of the rounds in the same stadium with the Salt Lake City rounds, you definitely get the feeling of like there's more track content in Supercross 3 than there is Supercross 4. I just feel like the compound was better in Supercross 3. I just, just the kind of overall track content in general, I think was a step above back in Supercross 3 compared to Supercross 4 here. But yeah, as far as, like I was saying, the graphics, I mean, Supercross 4 is not just going to blow you away. It's not like, oh my God, that's so much better than Supercross 3. It's just a different kind of graphics. It's kind of like they stripped away the graphical vibe toned effect that it had with Supercross 3. So it's more of like a natural, not really even a lighting effect at all here with Supercross 4, which is definitely a different vibe for sure. But yeah, Supercross 4 really doesn't have a whole lot of terrain deformation. It's not going to blow you away with that. I've done multiple rut tester, terrain deformation tester videos on that. The old rut tester, right? And went to quite a few different tracks testing, running quite a few laps with full gator riders and that whole kind of vibe. And I'm just going to tell you, it's not anything different than we've ever had from any other milestone game. It is more than it was in MXGP 2020, which is not saying much at all because there was literally none in MXGP 2020. At least it's more than that, but it's not like going to blow you away. It's not really making hardcore ruts that you're going to get into. It's definitely more of the standard milestone terrain deformation where it's more of a visual thing than a actual, physically feeling it on on the bike itself, you know what I'm saying? It's just kind of more so looks like there's ruts there. You don't really feel them quite as much. But yeah, as far as the popping off system to this game, I wanted to kind of touch up on that. You could see me super over jump that finish line here on Daytona. You're not going to pop off of the bike on this game, as far as just from like coming up short on a Supercross triple or over jumping a 200-foot jump. You're not just going to pop off. So they have definitely toned back on the popping off system that they started to introduce back in like MXGP Pro, Supercross 2. You know, they've definitely toned that back, and with the whole traction, more traction in this game, you're not really going to spin out in this game. There's really no wheel spin. Those are a couple of the aspects that I wish they would have kind of kept more from the older, from like Supercross 2 and 3 and stuff like that, was, a little bit more of a pop-off system than what we have here in Supercross 4, and a little bit more wheel spin than what we have here in Supercross 4. Not a lot more. I think Supercross 3 might have went just slightly overboard with the wheel spin element to that game. So that's what I kind of go into when I say, if you mix the two's wheel spin and physics system and everything, Supercross 3 and Supercross 4, I think you would have had a really cool experience. The whips in this game are, very, very similar to Supercross 3. They're just slightly faster and maybe a little more like free. The physics overall in this game, just like overall cornering, jumping, and everything, is definitely the freest, loosest feeling physics that we've ever had in any milestone game ever before. That is a giant aspect to this game that is really one of the biggest positives to this game, in my opinion. It's just the fact that you don't feel as restricted. You know how in a lot of those other milestone games, it's like this physics restricting fucking weird, thing to the physics system that feels like you're like locked in on the bike. You're like your movement's like locked off to where you can't steer as much as you want to. You can't, lean as much as you want to. But Supercross 4 has definitely alleviated a lot of that, and the weird random loss of momentum effect that you would have in the jumping physics system of Supercross 3, they have definitely ironed out some of those little buggy issues here in Supercross 4. So there's definitely quite a few positives to take away from the upgraded physics system here with Supercross 4 compared to Supercross 3. And as far as the track editor here in Supercross 4, there is literally, and listen to what I'm saying carefully, there is literally only 2 new module pieces in this track editor compared to Supercross 3's track editor. Two new module pieces, and that is it. That is the only new thing about this track editor versus Supercross 3's track editor. Yes, they do now give you the ability to color the tough blocks and the start flames and all that kind of stuff, but that was paid DLC back in Supercross 3, so that's not even a new thing. It's just something that used to be paid DLC that they now just give you for free, which is kind of bullshit, but whatever. Like, straight up, they're gonna have to start doing more with the track editor, period. Like, I want lighting effects, different, adjusting the lighting on the track. We need way more track module pieces. We need, pre-made rut module pieces. We need like motocross style module pieces. We need roughness module pieces. Heck, you could have a whole roughness rut pre-made slider on your custom track that could adjust like 0 to 100. I go 0 to 100, boy, real quick. Whole squat on that real shit. So they need like a slider, right, where you can basically take your track from being a perfectly smooth track to like rutty, ruts up the jump face, kickers, roughness. The more you raise that slider, no matter how you design the track, you see what I'm saying? And they desperately need more track compounds. So you know how you have like the normal dirt compound, then they started to add the sand compound. We need like a red clay compound, potentially a gray sand compound, some kind of like hard packed Vegas style compound. They desperately need to allow you to build your custom track in a Las Vegas style stadium where you have like an outdoor area, or like a Monster Cup style stadium where you can make more of those hybrid style Supercross tracks. These are all just things that I really expected at this point in the track editor. Like, I really expected it, being able to adjust the width of the track, how wide the track is. These are all things you would have expected quite a ways back there. So I really want to see those improvements to the track editor. So, yes, they do have an injury system in the career mode, which is kind of an interesting little vibe. I did go in there and make a video testing that out. It's interesting. It's different. It's not quite to the level that you're going to think in your head. It's not like you crash and then, oh my God, there's like this drunk effect on the screen from getting a concussion, or like, oh my God, now the steering's jacked up really bad or whatever. It's slight. It's not a massive injury system or anything like that. You know, I feel like that's the way a lot of the campaign stuff is in this game. It's not like a massive different thing or huge improvement or whatever, but it's just it's a little improvement, you know. Yeah, the ground fidelity in this game, like the ground graphics, are certainly more towards the graphical vibe of MXGP 2020, which was the best aspect of MXGP 2020. So you can definitely tell the graphics are, when you talk about the dirt fidelity in particular, you can tell that has definitely been upgraded, updated from Supercross 3, right? The whoops are not going to blow you away figuratively or literally. You know, the whoops are just, I mean, yeah, there may be a slight more feeling to the whoops as far as, you know, actually feeling it with the suspension of the bike and shit, but it's not anything crazy. It's not like, oh my God, now they finally have insane whoops in these milestone games. It's certainly not like that. Rhythm complexity on the tracks is pretty decent in this game. You know, you can definitely separate yourself in this game as far as the rhythms go. They're not like overly complicated, but they're a pretty good skill gap for an arcade motocross game. They feel pretty good. A lot of the tracks feel like the rhythms weren't trying to be like too one-to-one scaling or anything crazy like that. It just feels pretty good as far as the gameplay feeling of this game. That's definitely the one aspect of this game that you can tell they have definitely strived to try to make better, more replayability, skill gap, fun factor. You know, this game definitely has a vibe of that with the gameplay, but there's definitely a sense of feeling like there was definitely a lot of other aspects that were just lazy, very, very lazy in development. Like the track editor improvements are lazy as fuck. The compound SX training tracks are lazy as fuck, and there's just no way around it. Like, just lazy. You know, track content in this game, lazy. That's the only real word I have for that. But it, you know, like I've always said, I would rather them work on more, you know, the most important thing, which is the gameplay, which is the physics on the bike. So at least they have gone in here and gave some attention to, you know, things like the air physics and leaning forward and backwards and inertia and, you know, shit like that. It's definitely a sigh of relief getting more of those kind of changes to the game. So I was really happy about that. I have heard a lot of people complaining about the AI. I was actually getting a little bit of lag there in that first Anaheim 1 race I was on. So I think they may still have some little bugs and issues with the game here. But yeah, overall, as far as like, is the game worth it? Should you buy it? All that kind of jazz. Oh, and let me just mention this as well. They have seemed to improve the first-person camera quite a bit here as well. It doesn't feel as stiff as it did in Supercross 3. They started to kind of improve on this a little bit with MXGP 2020. And it's just nice, man. The first-person camera doesn't make you nauseous or anything crazy like that. The camera sticks to the bike pretty well here. They also have the whole futures aspect to the career mode as well. But yeah, as far as like overall rating, you know, should you buy it, whatever the heck you want to try to go down, you know, whatever road like that. I know a lot of you guys are curious on the Spency Boys' real opinion on that aspect in particular. So basically, like, I would pretty much rate this game the same rating that I would have given Supercross 3. I don't really feel like it's a lot better or worse. It's like better in some ways and worse in other ways, so it almost makes it end up coming out as being even with Supercross 3. You know, if you're more of a in-air physics guy, you want more, you know, that smoother jumping, you know, physics bouncing up in the air, more like, you know, old school arcade motocross games and shit. You know, and you didn't necessarily like the wheel spin that they started to introduce back in like MXGP Pro and shit like that. You're going to prefer a game more like Supercross 4 than you are Supercross 3. You know, but if you're one of those kind of people that you're more into the sliding a little bit in the corner, you're more into the track content, all those like training Supercross tracks, you know, Supercross 3 might be more of your kind of game. They're definitely different games. But we'll check out one of these training Supercross tracks right here. So you can see right here, this kind of reminds me a lot of the little compound Supercross track they had on like MXGP 2019, I think it was. Totally piss poor. Just absolutely like basically pointless. I mean, like what even is this kind of track right here? I don't know. But this is nowhere near to the level of the little training Supercross tracks they had on Supercross 3. Not even close, bro. Like, you're going to spend like 1/10 of the amount of time on this as you would the ones on Supercross 3. And there was twice as many of them on Supercross 3 on top of everything else. There's only 4 of these little shitty Supercross tracks on Supercross 4. So, but yeah, as far as like, should you buy the game? I think it just all comes down to, you should definitely buy this game before you buy MXGP 2020. There's no doubt about that. This game is a better game than MXGP 2020. There's no doubt, which is typical. A lot of times there's Supercross games, at least over the past, like, you know, quite a, you know, few years here, the Supercross game tends to be better than the MXGP game. But yeah, as far as like, should you buy this or Supercross 3, I don't know. I can't really put like a solid answer to that. I just can't, because they have certainly made improvements with the physics feeling on the bike in this game, which is one of the most important things to me. You know, that little weird ass loss of momentum for no reason type physics thing with Supercross 3, that was definitely a frustrating thing, especially the more time you started to put into Supercross 3. It just started to be like, what the hell is that? So it was definitely awesome that they made improvements to that here with Supercross 4. And I just like the rhythms and the way you jump and all that, and the leaning forward and backwards hucking system. They've advanced that aspect of the game with Supercross 4. I just like the way that aspect of Supercross 4 is, in particular, better than Supercross 3. But I mean, you know, there is not a whole lot of huge improvements to this game as far as anything else. There's just really not. That is the biggest improvement to this game, hands down, no doubt about it, is the leaning forward and backwards, a little bit looser feeling on the bike, air physics, jumping, bouncing, you know, suspension reacting when you come off of a, you know, a steep jump face, all that kind of shit. There's more inertia, feels a little more real in this game. All those kind of things are the biggest, you know, improvements they've made to this game. The rain mode of this game is not going to blow you away. It's not anything crazy different. What I do want to say, though, is at least they did bring back the wet track mode to the game that they took out of MXGP 2020. You know, they had the rain mode and then the wet track mode, and the wet track is like basically, it's like the rain mode but without actual rain falling. So that was nice to see them bring that back. I don't know why they took that out of MXGP 2020. And they also brought back Ghost in Time Attack, which they took out of MXGP 2020. So, you know, you got a couple of those little things like that back in this game, so it doesn't feel so weird and stripped content like that. But, yeah. I'm just trying to think of some other things here. That's some of the heavy hitter things. I mean, but overall, my rating for this game would be similar to my rating of Supercross 3. I can't even remember at this point what I rated Supercross 3, but Supercross 3 was my favorite milestone game, has been my favorite milestone game up to this point. I like Supercross 3 better than Supercross 1, 2, MXGP Pro, MXGP 3, MXGP 1 and 2, MXGP 2019, MXGP 2020. Supercross 3 was my favorite milestone game of all of them. And, so it's saying quite a bit for me to put this Supercross 4 game at least on that same level. I just don't know. It's hard. I can definitely see where certain people are going to like Supercross 3 better than Supercross 4. I 100% can see that. But I can also see where some people would like Supercross 4 better than Supercross 3. It's just all in kind of the type of stuff that you like more. But I don't know if there is a full-blown, clear-cut winner when you compare the two. So it's kind of one of those things of like, if you played Supercross 3 and you enjoyed that game, I do think that Supercross 4 is, worthy of picking up at some point. You may not want to pick it up right off the bat for full price because, Milestone, there's not a crazy amount of it. This is all comparing this shit back to how Milestone has always been, with them coming out with 2 games a year. This is not a drastic difference in any kind of a way. It kind of feels to me like when you compare this to Supercross 3, it's like we took 1 step forward and half a step backwards, or like 1 step forward and 1 step backwards. It's this weird, like, they have improved on some things, but then also other things have been actually ended up being worse, especially track content, track editor, just some various things. Seems like they kind of took a little bit of a step backwards, so it all kind of ends up being somewhere in the same realm when you talk about rating, like overall rating to the game, right? You do still have the backflip mechanic that you got in Supercross 3. The whip system is not terrible in this game. It's similar to Supercross 3, which was the best we had up to that point, with the more variation and the being able to do like turn up whips, turn down whips, different kind of turning both your thumbsticks the same direction to whip. So it still has all that freeness, physics, whipping, that whole sort of all those nice elements that we got with Supercross 3. It takes a lot of the good elements from Supercross 3, which definitely helps this game out quite a bit. And then improves on certain aspects of it, but then other aspects kind of take a slight step backwards. Like I'm saying, I feel like they should have kept at least a little bit of the sliding out mechanic of Supercross 3, because you just don't slide out at all in this game. And they should have kept a little bit more of that popping off system. Just a little bit. Like I'm saying, just a little bit would have went a long way in this game right here. But as far as like actual, what I would have expected, proper improvements, I would have expected at least 2 free ride compounds in this game. This is still very, very basic content, like 1 free ride track. No other kind of random motocross track series or enduro cross. There's no other kind of, hair scramble series or enduro series or enduro cross series or there's none of that kind of shit like that. There's no 2-strokes. There's no 50cc bikes. There's no like fun little random shit like that. So Milestone definitely didn't like step outside of the box or anything, or like really, give you any kind of crazy content type stuff that would like blow you away or anything like that. They didn't do anything like that. So don't get your hopes up on that, because there's nothing really new as far as that goes, content wise, in the game. But you can definitely see they're starting to take some steps forward with getting you more of that inertia to the leaning and the air physics, and that's such a big thing that we've been missing in these Milestone games. They've been so ground physics oriented for so long, and it's so nice to see them starting to give attention to the air physics in a Supercross game, where that's like such an important aspect to it. It's so fun, trying to like hook a certain rhythm, trying to lean back and get like the perfect seat bounce, leaning forward, backwards, and then forward again, and trying to get just that perfect landing in the transition to hit the next rhythm. It's definitely a, fun, make you want to come back and play it gameplay wise, which is is, keeping this game alive right now, frankly. Like, that is such a big aspect that is keeping this game alive, is the improvements to the air physics and the leaning forward and backwards. It's a really big aspect to this game here. So, but either way, that's some of the main heavy hitter stuff. I appreciate all the support. Hope I explained everything in a decent way here. Is it worth the money? It's just hard to say, man. It's hard to say. I can't, certain aspects of this game were super lazy, but other aspects, it's like finally they're starting to improve on those things. So it's just kind of I wouldn't consider this game a lot better than Supercross 3. I wouldn't consider this game a lot worse than Supercross 3. It's just kind of somewhere in the same sort of rating as Supercross 3. And that's about where I would put it. As far as like rider customization, like the face options and all that shit's super similar to the way it's always been. I don't think you have a whole lot of crazy different like customization options, or it's your standard run-of-the-mill stuff that you would expect in these milestone games. So as far as content, this game is not anything special. You know what I'm saying? It's just not. But as far as physics, feeling on the bike, there have definitely been aspects that have been improved upon, no doubt about it. So, but yeah, either way. Good old either way with the Spency boy here. So, we'll be back on that next one later, dude.